Imposing sanctions is an art. And it seems that Western countries do not know how to do this subtly, jewelry, precise and efficient. The sanctions of Western countries look somewhat chaotic, spontaneous, and reflexive. And that's not good. This is not very good. This should not be the case. This approach needs to be corrected, and sanctions should be used effectively. And most importantly, every time, to increase their effectiveness. Do you remembering? Western countries tried to absorb the best minds of mankind. And where are these minds now? Since they have such a high-profile title of the best minds of mankind, then let them solve these problems and finally break away from their games on the PlayStation, where they defeat virtual enemies and finally take up their direct duty to be the best the minds of mankind. Not in games, but in reality. What is it for? To the fact that modern people are completely softened. Especially in Western countries. They unlearn not only to fight, but, and most importantly, they have forgotten how to think, or in another way it is called, to thinking. Do you want an example? Yes, please. This is just one of the examples: to feed, grow up and nourish the fascist Russian regime, and then supply weapons against it, and impose sanctions against it, you need to be geniuses. Geniuses of idiocy. And let's not forget about China, and about India, which is similar to Russia. They fed, gave a suitcase with money, and filled it with gold and finances. Therefore, where are all these vaunted Western best minds of mankind who have been leaving for Western countries in recent years? If they are there, then let them wake up. It's time to work on saving the world and saving humanity. PlayStation and TikTok, your favorite series or Netflix, will not run away from you anywhere. Forget about them for a while. By the way, did it ever occur to anyone that TikTok, and its stunning success by the United States, was a special operation of China to stupefy and idiotize the people of America? And the world needs America, its best minds are needed. And these best minds are grimacing on TikTok. There is nothing wrong with grimacing, but alas, it seems that in the course of this process, the intellect begins to suffer. Trying to get as many likes as possible does not lead to good. But try to argue with this? Can't? So what is this TikTok? Just a social network? Not. Maybe that's why so much nonsense has been happening in the world in recent years? Coronavirus, wars and other nonsense. For example, while sanctions were being imposed against Russia, they forgot about countries like India. Why India, and not just China, can help Russia bypass sanctions? Against a background of the imposition of sanctions on Russia, everyone was so praised that they say, sanctions will sink the Russian economy. There was hope for it. But, so the ruble has stabilized in Russia, and the goods can be replaced by Russia. Turkey is trying to help. Somehow Russia began to take action, and it does not look like everything destroying sanctions that will destroy the Russian economy. At the beginning of the sanctions on Russia, everyone turned their attention to China. It was China, as Russia's main potential partner, that could potentially help it circumvent sanctions. Now, at the moment, if China is acting, then not openly. But, clearly something helps Russia. It is necessary to say separately about the sanctions of the West. Imposing sanctions is also an art, as was said at the beginning. And the West seems to have problems with this because the sanctions are not as effective as they could be. For example, China is secretly helping Russia. It is not known in what way, but this help is clearly available for Russia. In this regard, the conclusion is, what difference does it make how China helps Russia? Publicly or not, it doesn't matter. The main thing is that this help is there. Everything else doesn't matter. And since this assistance is available, the effectiveness of sanctions from Western countries is low. Everything is logical. This means sanctions either do not work or they work poorly. This means that the West is missing something and does not understand that sanctions are such a tool that should be applied with lightning speed at the same second as soon as someone even looks or licks their lips at Russia. But there is no such thing. The West is playing with time and badly tracking Russia's contacts with China and India, yes, with India. There is a great danger that Western countries do not want or are afraid to firmly state that any country that has looked towards Russia and licked its lips at helping her, publicly or not open, it can run into such sanctions from which the desire to do such dirty tricks will be repulsed forever. Then the sanctions will be effective. But if countries like China and India are not afraid of Western countries, then this, as it were, even invites them to cooperate with Russia. India wants to become one of these countries. In the Russian market, she sees herself as one of the main countries that will supply many goods to Russia. Russia staked on India after China became more cautious with Russia. You will see in the near future how India and Russia will join together in order to resist the sanctions. India seems to have chosen the side of Russia. And when China sees that there will be nothing for India. There are no hard sanctions. If there is no reaction from Western countries, then China will undoubtedly enter into a conglomerate with Russia. What the Western countries do not fully understand, the dictatorial countries at the subconscious level are drawn to each other and seek to protect themselves through unification. Therefore, China and India will lick their lips at other dictatorial countries to help them. Thus, the dictatorship is expanding across the planet. That's why the Western countries made a huge mistake, making China so economically strong and making India such a rich country. First, it was necessary to trace the ruling regimes in these countries and study the issue of the desire of the local people for democracy, and only then pour tons of monetary units and finance into their economy. But Western companies, in pursuit of profits, spit on it. And by the way, this should have been according to the standards of space flight. Why are there strict standards? And when money is poured into dictatorial countries, monitoring and risk assessment from such actions are not carried out. In the end, what had to happen happened. The dictatorship received huge financial flows. As Professor Preobrazhensky said from the Soviet film, "Here is Sharikov for you, and eat it with porridge." About India, if this is not corrected, and urgently, and sanctions are not imposed on India, then this will be a failure of the sanctions that were imposed on Russia. Demand your governments to deal with the issue of India, because if not today, then tomorrow, India will bring a lot of trouble to the world if it helps Russia to circumvent sanctions. Neither India nor China fully understand how dangerous Russia is. That in Russia is not just a dictatorship, everything is much worse there. But, since they do not understand this, the sanctions will let them know that Russia is a toxic country. It is better not to help it, otherwise the sanctions will hurt. All these questions should be dealt with by the best minds of mankind, who are currently sitting on TikTok or playing on PlayStation.